Okay, so welcome everybody. This is another session, another random walk down Mill Street. And tonight we're going to be talking about the 23rd Psalm, which is probably one of the most famous Psalms in the Psalter because it's beautiful. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And we use it in the liturgy quite a bit. And so it's pretty famous to Jew and Gentile alike. And here at Eretz Israel, we have a lot of melodies for that psalm, which is, as you shall soon see, different than most of the other Spanish Portuguese communities. And we have beautiful melodies, and I'm going to play them for you. And so that's tonight's class. I did want to say, people continue to ask me about where to watch the previous classes, and I am slowly but surely uploading them online. And so I wanted to show you where that is. I'm going to put the link into the chat, which you can look at your leisure, or email if you don't find it here. But I made a little page on our website with my online content. It doesn't have all my classes yet. I still have to upload them or edit some of them. But it has slowly but surely increasing amounts of what I do online that has been recorded is there in the on this little web page. So that's where you can look if you want to find what I did last week or the week before or whatever. And without further ado, we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the 23rd Psalm. So let me share my screen. Okay. Now I want to make sure that you can still see. Let's see here. Okay. I want to make sure that you can still see my screen. You can see a random walk down Mill Street on your screen. Everyone sees it? Nod, yes? Okay, good. Thank you. So I do want to say that this week's presentation has been sponsored by Suzanne Murad. I don't know actually if you're on tonight, but thank you very much. In memory of her mother, Manija Rachel Murad. So Shanim Rabod, we wish you many years and many good memories, and thank you for sponsoring this evening's presentation. And now, without further ado, we're going to start our session. So tonight we're going to talk about Mizmor LeDavid, which is a famous psalm. I'm going to chant for you the way it is sung here when there's no choir. So the place where you see it most frequently is in the Friday night liturgy. After the Amidah, after the Vaychulu, then we say Mizmor LeDavid. And if the choir is not here, then it has a special chant, which is one of the psalm modes that we sing here. And you will recognize it from many other psalms or from Friday nights when there's no choir. It goes like this. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai rongi lo echsar, inote sheyarbitzeni, galme menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yishobeb, yancheni b'mangele tzedek leman timo, gam ki elech begeit almavet, lo irarang ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishkantecha, hema yenachamuni, tangaroch lefanai shulchan neged zorerai, Ishanta Bashemen Roshi, Kosi Revaya, Ach Tov Bachesed Yirdefuni, Kol Yemei Chayai, Veshabti Bebeit Adonai, V'yorech Yamin. And so that's what you would hear, let's say, all summer long. Usually the Chazan sings it loudly and slowly, and congregants try to follow along if they know it. But often it turns into a kind of solo with a little humming behind by the congregation. But that's the mode. Now, In Amsterdam and in London, they have essentially the same thing, slightly different manner of doing the Psalms, but they don't have any special composed melody. So on Friday night, they just do their regular Psalm melodies for Mizmor LeDavid, both in London and in Amsterdam, and I assume elsewhere in the Spanish-Portuguese world as well. But here in New York, we have several composed pieces. But that wasn't always the case. By the way, interestingly enough, and I haven't researched this enough to know exactly what is going on there, but if you go to Amsterdam on Friday night, after the Kaddish Kabal, which is after, you have the Amidah, you have Vaychulu, you have a Kaddish Kabal, and then you have this psalm. After the Kaddish Kabal, the Chazan says, Shabbat Shalom. Maybe Shabbat Shalom Umvorach. I don't know, some of my Amsterdam friends here will tell me if I'm right or wrong, but that, I think, indicates that that's the end of the service. And everything afterwards is just added on. At least that's my interpretation of why do they say Shabbat Shalom at that point in time? I don't know. Anyway, that's a little tidbit to be researched. Now, I was in the archives a few months ago and I found this little page. This is what today, if you were to ask the choir master what this is what we call a lead sheet. This is for the choir master to know what melodies to sing on various occasions. So if you see on the top, it says ordinary Shabbat, and it has different occasions: Shabbat Hagadol, Pesach, Shabbat Chol HaMoed, and the last day of the Pesach. So this is one of several pages which goes through the calendar of the year, and it's to remind the choir master which days get special melodies for certain prayers. And interestingly, there is no. So you'll see, and this is a fascinating document for me because it mentions composers' names that we don't have or we don't know what they composed. So you'll see here, let's say, Adon Olam on the second day of Pesach, it says to use Carvajo. I don't know what melody that is. I wish I did. We don't have any melodies by anyone named Carvajo. We know who Carvajo was. There was a famous artist, and we also have a famous, we have a Chazan from synagogue whose name was Carvajo, who came from Savannah, came from South Carolina, then to Baltimore, and then to New York. But I don't know if that's who that refers to or something else. I don't know, but it's fascinating. Anyway, you will see that for Shabbat, right here before the congregational Kaddish, Kahal Kaddish, it has Mizmor Adonai Ro'i. And it doesn't have any distinction. It's just these are the days when the choir, these are tunes sung by the choir, Mizmor Adonai Ro'i. Which tune it is, I don't know. I presume it is the psalmody mode that I just sang for you, because this page, I believe, predates any of our recent modern choir. I think it dates from the days of Jacques Judah Lyons and his son Julius J. Lyons. And I know that only because of the handwriting. This is not the handwriting of any choir master since. It's not the handwriting of Henry Paramendes. It's not the handwriting of David de Solapool. So this is a pretty old document going back into the 19th century. Anyway, I'm showing it to you just to show that there was a melody. The choir did sing Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Ro'i, but it doesn't have any special composers or different names for the melody that is sung. Presumably there was only one melody. That is confirmed, I think, by a letter that Alfred Lyons, who was also a son of Jacques Judah Lyons, wrote to David de Solapool in 1909. It's an interesting letter. We're not going to read through the whole thing. But if you look at the last paragraph on this first page and the first paragraph on the second page, it says, you ask why Mizmor LeDavid is sometimes congregational, meaning sung by the congregants in the pews, and sometimes not, sometimes only sung by the choir. And he speculates, there is only one traditional tune for this psalm. And when it is started by the choir, the congregation join in. So sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but there's only one tune. Now, I am not 100% sure that Lyons here is talking about our Psalm 23, or if he's talking about Mizmor LeDavid Habul Adonai. I'm not sure, but I still believe that until the days of Leon Kramer, there was only one melody, the traditional psalmody melody for Mizmor LeDavid, as it is sung in Amsterdam and London to this day. So, if you've been to synagogue here at Sheretz Israel on Friday night, you will know that the 23rd Psalm is one of the highlights of our service, truly. And that is because we have several melodies that are incredibly masterful melodies that are the highlight of the whole evening. V'shamru is one. We did a whole class about V'shamru, but the 23rd Psalm is the other. And the one that we sing most regularly is a composition by Henry Pereira-Mendes. Now, I could spend many classes talking about Henry Pereira-Mendes, and I'll give a few minutes here just because he's so worthy of praise. Henry Pereira-Mendes is also the Chaim Pereira-Mendes, was the minister here from 1877 till his death in 1938, I believe, 1937. He was one of the towering, and I don't say that lightly, towering figures of Judaism in the late 19th and early 20th century. I could go do a whole litany of his accomplishments. We'll try a few of them here. He is one of the prime movers and founders of the Jewish Theological Seminary. He is one of the prime conceivers and founders of the Orthodox Union. Both of them founded by the same man. Both of them met in the synagogue of Sheretz Israel. So today, you wouldn't get the OU and the JTS in the same room, but literally they were in the same room originally. He founded many other philanthropic institutions that are less well known, Lexington School for the Deaf, and there's a few others in that list. He was an ardent Zionist in the early days of Zionism. And he was like the American representative in the Zionist conference in Basel, and Herzl charged him with spreading Zionism in America. Like, no slouch. Not only that, he was also a medical doctor. In addition to being a rabbi and a chazan, he was a medical doctor. And he was shot. I mean, the incredible thing, literally shot by mentally disturbed pauper who came for money on Shabbat, and he said, sorry, come back later. The guy came back later with a gun and shot him. He survived, and he got a long career. But he, anyway, that's enough. I could go on and on. If someone out there wants to write an academic biography of Henry Pereira-Mendes, he deserves it. He needs it. People should know his name much more than they do today. Anyway, in addition to all those things I mentioned, he was also a composer, and he composed music for our synagogue that is glorious. And we're going to listen to it right now. I don't have a lot to say. I just want you to hear it. And I have the music on page. I hope that you'll be able to follow along. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, it's pretty great. I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. So that is what you'll hear most Shabbatot. If you come to synagogue on Friday night, you will hear that 23rd Psalm by H. Pereira Mendes. There is another one that we're going to listen to as well. By the way, if you're wondering about the picture in the corner, this is Henry Pereira Mendes in the synagogue in St. Thomas. So beginning in around 1925 or 1924, 1925, Dr. Mendes became, I don't know if they used the term emeritus or senior minister or emeritus minister, but basically they released him from having daily duties in the synagogue, and mainly because his health was starting to become poor. And Dr. Poole was back from Palestine. They also had Reverend Korkos or Reverend Wachnon during this period. And so they had enough support on the Teba that they could release Dr. Mendes. And so Dr. Mendes, first he spent some time in Los Angeles, convalescing, and then he went to St. Thomas. And he went to St. Thomas. He was supposed to just relax there and recover his health, but he ended up reviving the synagogue there and served as the minister in St. Thomas for a few years. And again, we'll have to get into that the next time we talk about Dr. Mendes. But here's a picture from his, I think, 1925 in St. Thomas on the Teba in the synagogue there. That has a synagogue that still exists. It has sand on the floor. You can go visit it today. Okay, next we're going to listen to the version of the 23rd Psalm, the setting for the 23rd Psalm, that was done by Leon Kramer. Leon Kramer, we've listened to some of his pieces in the past. Leon Kramer was the choir master here from, I don't remember the exact years, but about 60 years, beginning in around 1880 or so until 1940. He was, if there was anybody who was basically the formative person for the way the choir is today, I mean, Leon Hyman, you think that 60 years would blow everyone out the water, but Leon Hyman was 66 years, so I don't know. But Leon Kramer really is responsible for bringing our choir into the modern era, and he wrote many pieces for our choir. He arranged most of the pieces of our choir. He brought in music from Europe, introduced music to our choir. And much of which remains in the liturgy today. So this is his setting for the 23rd Psalm, and we'll listen to that without any further introduction. So yeah, that's another beautiful setting for this psalm. There's a picture of Leon Kramer at the piano there on the left. That was sent to me by his grandson a few maybe last year. But we are not through. This is the alternate version, alternate setting that we sing occasionally, and lately it's been very occasional. But there is yet a third melody that is not um, it's not really part of our regular repertoire. It was composed by Leon Hyman in 2014 or 2015. And the choir committee did not really accept it into the regular repertoire. We let him sing it once on I think it was Shabbat Shirah in 2015, 2016, but it didn't make it part of the regular repertoire. And when you listen to it, you'll hear why, because it's a little bit more complicated than the other versions, that other settings. It's quite nice, and it uses the Spanish Portuguese Shirat Hayam theme in the beginning and the end. You'll hear it running through a little bit, but it's a lot more of a complicated setting, and I don't know if you'll be able to follow the music along. It's a little smaller here, but there were more pages of it. But here, let's listen to it. It was also performed at the annual gala or annual dinner that was held in 2016. So, which is where this video comes from. It's a little shaky. It's a hand video done with a phone, but hopefully you'll enjoy it just the same. pretty great. I got to say that it's too elaborate to do regularly, but I really do wish we could do it maybe once a year or something like that because it's pretty amazing. And you know, new music is not so easy to come by. And anyway, those are my thoughts about it. Now, one thing you may have noticed, and that is that the traditional melody that I chanted for you in the beginning, that can be sung by anyone. It has, you know, doesn't have any complicated musical parts to it. But the 23rd Psalm, as we sing it usually, whether it's Mendes, Kramer, or certainly Hyman's versions, are art pieces, and they are not intended to be sung, at least alone, by the congregation. Congregation knows the Mendes one very well and could probably attempt it, but it's really intended to be an art piece sung by the choir. And so this week, sadly, we don't have the choir. You won't hear any of these melodies other than the first chant that I started with. So come this week to hear the chant. Come next week to hear the Mendes version. We'll see if we can impress the choir to sing some of the other versions on future weeks. Now I'm going to close with one more thing. There is another occasion when we say the 23rd Psalm. It's not a happy occasion. It's usually the opening of funeral service. Now, it's usually chanted, sometimes in English and in Hebrew, sometimes just in Hebrew, sometimes just in English. But there is a recording that many of you know if you received or purchased the League CD set from about 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I don't know how many years ago it was now. And that has a recording of Dr. Poole reciting the 23rd Psalm in English. And here's a picture of Dr. Poole, and I chose this picture in particular because his recitation is theatrical, and this picture looks very theatrical to me. And you can really get a sense of his you know, intoning the meaning of the psalm when he reads it. So why don't we listen to that? And that's what we're going to close with. Oh, what happened? Oops. No. What happened? Let me try that again. We're going to try that one more time, and if it doesn't work, then we'll have to skip out on it, which is fine by me as well. Let's see. For some reason, it doesn't want to play. Oh, wait. It's just the graphic, not the recording. Alas, we'll have to do it another time. You'll have to take my word for it. That Dr. Poole was a real orator of some renown. So that's so let's take a look. I didn't see the chats. Let's take a look what we got here. Okay. Mark Aaron says Dr. Poole wrote a biography of Dr. Mendes. Actually, it's not really a biography. It's about 20 or 30 pages. Maybe not even. Maybe it's 20 pages, and it is a sort of after he passed away. It's sort of an honorific to him. Is he related to Jonathan Mendes and Josh Mendes? Yes, but not directly. He is a grand uncle of Colonel Mendes. Colonel Mendes. Dr. Mendes' brother is the grandfather of Colonel Mendes, I should say. Thank you, Annette. Absolutely. And can I say a few words about the extent to which individual congregations can and do elect to use and even compose the melodies for assorted parts of the service? I could, but I'm no expert. So I'm not sure how valuable what I would say will be, but so there are certain pieces that are traditional and really are rarely tampered with. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, all the traditional things sung on Kippur, you know, El Norah Lila. No one could ever imagine a choir master saying, "Oh, I'm going to compose another El Norah Lila." No, it doesn't work that way. But there are other pieces which have lots of compositions. Yigdal, Adon Olam, Ein Kelokenu, Um, the the songs around the Torah service frequently. In our congregation, the Tehillat, Uvnu Choyomar, Emet Malkeinu, all of these have many compositions, art compositions by composers, some of them from the Spanish Portuguese tradition, some of them from the German world, and other Italian. You know, there's a wide range of choral music, and we are part of that tradition. It's not a very common tradition today, but in the 19th century and the early 20th century, many synagogues had choirs and were part of this tradition of grand synagogue singing. Let's see. Joanne says, yes, I agree. Leon Hyman needs an evening of tribute for his many dedicated service. Yes, Joanne, absolutely. Thank you. How can I watch the Shi'ur again? Well, once I finish the recording, which I think I'm going to do imminently, I'll put it up online. And that's it. Okay. Why did 23rd Psalm become traditional for funeral services? Well, it does have this, it's very pastoral. It's very nice. God is our shepherd, shepherds us through the valley of death. There's probably more that could be said, but I'll leave it at that. That's my answer, final answer. And with that, I wish you all a good night. I'm going to turn off the recording. You can stay and talk if you wish.